Tamara Wilson's world collapsed in less than 30 seconds. One moment she was chopping vegetables for her son's lunch, humming a tune her grandmother had taught her, and the next, her vision blurred, her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the cold kitchen floor. "Mom! Mom!" Her son's tiny voice cracked with panic. In his fumbling attempt to help, he dialed the wrong number, a number belonging to a man who had carefully insulated himself from chaos and human need for over a decade. Ethan Miller, sitting alone in his sleek high-rise apartment, stared at the phone as a small, frightened voice squeaked, "Mom fell down. Please help." For the first time in years, he didn't hesitate. Something inside him stirred, an ache he hadn't admitted even to himself. And just like that, two lives, so carefully managed and guarded, collided in a moment of unplanned, urgent vulnerability. Tamara Wilson woke slowly, the taste of iron and cold air filling her senses. She wasn't in her kitchen anymore. Blinking against the stark, bright light, she realized she was lying on a soft couch, wrapped in a cashmere blanket that smelled faintly of cedar. Panic rose in her chest, her mind racing. What had happened? "Tamara? You're awake." A calm, deep voice. Warm. Measured. Something in it made her heart beat faster. She turned her head and saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, light brown hair slightly tousled, blue-gray eyes studying her with a mixture of concern and careful distance. The kind of gaze that weighed a person without pressing. I must have fainted," she croaked, voice raw. Her son, in the corner, hugged a worn stuffed lion to his chest, his eyes wide and anxious. "Yes," he said gently, "your son called me when he didn't know who else to call. You were unconscious on the floor." Tamara blinked at him, incredulous. "You came." He nodded. "Of course. I wouldn't ignore a child asking for help." There was a pause, then he added, almost quietly, "I'm Ethan." She hesitated. Trust didn't come easily to her, not after raising a child alone, not after living through betrayals that had left emotional bruises she still tended to like garden plants, carefully, privately. But something about him was different. Practical, calm, not prying, not assuming, not patronizing. Tamara's mind replayed the kitchen scene, the chopping, the sudden weakness, the panic in her son's voice. She had been trying so hard to hold it all together. Work, parenting, life. She never asked for help. Never let anyone in. Yet here she was, wrapped in a stranger's blanket, feeling safety in a way she hadn't in years. Her son, Liam, climbed onto the couch beside her. "Mom, he saved you," he said, looking at Ethan with awe. Tamara's heart softened at the sight of her son's trust. Ethan crouched slightly to meet Liam's gaze. "Hey, champ. You did the right thing. I'm glad you called me." Tamara swallowed, a tight knot forming in her throat. She wanted to ask so many questions. Why him? How did he know what to do? But all she could manage was a quiet, "Thank you." Ethan's lips curved slightly, but he said nothing more, letting the moment settle, respecting the unspoken boundaries. There was a comfort in that restraint. Later, in the kitchen that smelled faintly of burnt toast and fresh basil, Tamara tried to make sense of her life. How had a single call, an accident, brought a man like Ethan Miller into her world? She studied him as he handed her a glass of water, noting the casual confidence in his movements, the ease with which he carried himself, and yet, there was an unmistakable loneliness in his eyes. A shadow that mirrored her own in ways she couldn't quite name. Liam tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, can we keep him? Please." She laughed softly, the sound breaking some of the tension. Ethan's eyes met hers, amusement flickering there, though his voice remained gentle. "I think I'll survive your son's company for a little while," he said, and for the first time, Tamara allowed herself a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this chaotic, unexpected intrusion into her carefully structured life could become something good. Over the next hour, as Tamara regained her strength, they talked cautiously, testing boundaries without words. He asked about her work, her son's school, her hobbies. She answered, surprised at how natural it felt. He listened. Really listened. And when she spoke about challenges, about exhaustion, about moments she feared she couldn't manage alone. He didn't offer cliched platitudes or pity. He simply acknowledged, validated, supported. Later, as she prepared to leave his apartment with Liam, she hesitated. I don't know how to thank you, she admitted. Ethan's gaze softened. You don't have to thank me, he said. Just, let me know you're okay. That's enough. Tamara nodded, realizing this was the start of something she hadn't anticipated. Not just gratitude, but a spark of curiosity, and maybe something more. Outside, the evening air felt different, charged. Liam chattered excitedly about the strange, kind man who had appeared like an answer to an unspoken prayer. Tamara held his hand tightly, glancing back once to see Ethan watching them leave, a small, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. Something inside her shifted. The fainting episode, the accidental call, the improbable intrusion, none of it made sense. Yet in that chaos, a door had opened. And for the first time in a long time, Tamara Wilson wondered if life might just surprise her with more than she could ever imagine. Tamara woke the next morning to the smell of brewing coffee and a faint drizzle tapping against the windows. For a brief moment, she thought she was still in her apartment, still cocooned in the security of her kitchen. Then she remembered. Ethan. The accidental call. The improbable kindness that had breached the fortress she'd built around her life. She sat at her small breakfast table, Liam at her side, recounting every detail of their encounter with animated gestures. He has blue eyes, Mom. Really blue. And he didn't even yell at me when I called him. Liam said, eyes sparkling. Tamara laughed softly, brushing a curl from his forehead. The warmth in her chest clashed with a nervous flutter. Later that morning, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She stared at it. I hope you slept well. If Liam and you need anything, I'm just a call away. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wasn't used to letting people in. She certainly wasn't used to wealthy, handsome strangers checking in on her. Her instinct was to ignore it. But something about Ethan felt different. Authentic. Honest. She typed back cautiously, thank you. We're okay. He's already asking when he can see you again. By mid-morning, a surprising knock sounded at her apartment door. Her heart stuttered as Liam ran to answer it. There was Ethan, carrying a small paper bag of pastries. I thought you might enjoy these, he said, voice soft, no hint of arrogance. He paused, then glanced at Liam. I figured you'd need fuel for your superhero adventures. Tamara's cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, not without strings attached. She invited him in cautiously, aware of how her pulse raced at the sight of him in her modest kitchen, the contrast between his polished, confident presence and the humble chaos of her life strikingly clear. As they ate pastries together, conversation flowed easily. Ethan asked about her work, about Liam's school projects, about her dreams. Tamara realized she was talking about herself in a way she hadn't in years, openly, without fear of judgment. He listened, really listened, occasionally offering insight or encouragement, never overstepping. Tamara, he said gently, you handle so much on your own. I admire that. But you don't have to do everything alone. She hesitated, internal pride warring with the truth she couldn't deny. He wasn't offering pity, he was offering support. Something real. Finally, with a small nod, she replied, I know. I've always managed. But inside, she acknowledged the comfort in letting someone in, even in small ways. The afternoon slipped by, and Ethan remained, helping Liam with a homework assignment he didn't quite understand but approached with good humor. Watching him patiently kneel beside her son, Tamara felt a swell of gratitude, and something else, something she hadn't expected, a pull toward him that went beyond thankfulness. By evening, she realized she had been laughing more freely than she had in months. Her son was asleep in his room, and she found herself alone with Ethan in the quiet living room, the soft hum of the city outside their window. I didn't expect to feel at ease, she admitted quietly. Not with strangers, not in years. Ethan's gaze softened, searching hers. I don't want to be a stranger, he said. I want to be someone you can rely on. That you trust. Her pulse quickened. Trust was dangerous. Trust could hurt. But her instincts told her he was different. She swallowed, nodding slightly, and the air between them thickened with unspoken tension. Then came the phone call that would change everything. Her ex-husband, a man she hadn't spoken to in months, had called Liam's school, demanding to speak with her. His voice, sharp and accusatory, reminded her of every reason she had fought to protect herself and her son. Anxiety surged, threatening to undo the fragile peace she had begun to feel. Ethan noticed her tension immediately. Do you want me to? He began. Tamara shook her head, embarrassed but grateful. No. I've got this. But, thank you. Later that night, after the confrontation, she sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, replaying the day in her mind. Ethan had been there for her in subtle ways, checking on Liam, sharing in small chores, listening. She realized that the accidental call had brought someone into their lives who wasn't there to complicate, but to connect. Over the next few days, a rhythm developed. Ethan would stop by occasionally, bringing groceries or pastries, sometimes just to check in. He didn't overstay, didn't intrude, and yet his presence became an anchor, a grounding force Tamara didn't know she needed. Liam adored him, running to the door with the excitement only a child could have. One rainy afternoon, Tamara caught herself staring at him as he laughed with Liam over a board game. Something in her chest tightened, an unfamiliar longing, mixed with fear of letting someone in so quickly. You're quiet, Ethan remarked, noticing her gaze. Thinking about something. She hesitated, then let a small smile escape. Just this. Everything. I didn't expect. Well, you. Ethan smiled softly. Life has a funny way of finding the right moments, and the right people, he said, and the words lingered between them. That evening, after Liam had gone to bed, they sat on the small balcony of her apartment, sharing a quiet cup of tea. The city lights shimmered like distant stars, and for the first time in years, Tamara felt herself exhale completely. The walls she had built around her heart were crumbling, not with force, but with quiet, persistent care. Ethan leaned back, brushing a damp curl from her shoulder. You deserve happiness, he said. His voice was low, sincere, almost reverent. And someone who sees you, really sees you. Tamara looked at him, the words settling deep in her chest. She wanted to believe him, wanted to allow herself the luxury of hope. And for the first time, she dared to imagine a life where vulnerability wasn't weakness, where love could find its way unexpectedly. It was then that her phone buzzed again, a notification from work. But she ignored it. For the first time, she focused on the here and now, the warmth of tea, the soft drizzle outside, the feel of his hand brushing hers. Small gestures, tiny moments, weaving a connection neither of them had anticipated. By the time Ethan left that night, Tamara realized something profound. Her world had shifted. The accidental call, her fainting, the fear and chaos, it had all been a prelude to something deeper. A connection that was more than chance. Something she wanted, something worth exploring. And as she watched him disappear down the street, Liam asleep in the next room, she whispered softly to herself, maybe this is the beginning of something real. Could you forgive someone who entered your life by accident, but ended up changing it forever? Tamara's apartment smelled faintly of rain and cinnamon as she prepared dinner for herself and Liam. Her mind, however, was elsewhere, on Ethan. She hadn't expected to think about a man this much less feel her chest tighten when his name crossed her thoughts. Her phone buzzed again. She frowned, hesitated, then answered. Hello. Dinner. Ethan's voice was casual, but there was an undertone of expectation, playful yet tender. Tamara laughed softly. You want dinner? You always cook well, he said, almost shyly. I'd like to see if you're as good as Liam says. She paused, heart fluttering. Okay. But it'll be simple. Just pasta. Perfect. See you in 20, he replied before hanging up. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Liam rushed to open it. beaming as Ethan stepped in with a small bouquet of daisies, their freshness cutting through the lingering scent of rain. "Surprise," he said, his lips curving in that familiar, subtle smile. Tamara's cheeks flushed. As they ate, conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter, teasing, and the occasional touch, a hand brushing against hers, an arm grazing her shoulder. Liam watched them with curiosity, his presence a reminder of the stakes. Any connection she allowed herself had to include her son. "You really listen," Tamara said quietly, almost to herself, as Ethan described a small anecdote about a childhood memory. "Most people just talk. You actually hear me." Ethan's eyes softened. "I notice. It matters to me." The warmth between them thickened into something more palpable, an unspoken pull that neither wanted to name but both felt. Tamara found herself leaning slightly closer, unconsciously matching his posture, noting the calm strength in his hands, the way his gaze lingered without pressure. Then came the first challenge. A work emergency pulled Tamara away from dinner. A client needed a last-minute pitch, and she couldn't say no. Panic surged. Her life was a constant balancing act between work, parenting, and keeping some semblance of normalcy. "I need to step away for a bit," she murmured, worry etched across her face. Ethan's expression didn't change. He stood, gently squeezing her shoulder. "I've got Liam. Go handle your work. Don't worry about us." Relief washed over her, mixed with admiration. This wasn't just help, it was partnership, offered without expectation or judgment. She kissed his cheek lightly before rushing out, leaving him with her son. When she returned an hour later, the apartment was quiet, the faint scent of chocolate chip cookies filling the air. Liam ran to her, then paused, watching Ethan in the corner of the living room. Their eyes met, and she caught the way his gaze softened, protective yet playful. "Missed you," Liam said, hugging her leg. "You missed me too," she replied, ruffling his hair. Then she looked at Ethan, who gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that their growing bond was undeniable. Over the following week, Ethan's visits became routine, a gentle intrusion into Tamara's ordered life. Each visit brought subtle shifts, a hand offered to steady her when she tripped, a brush of his fingers against hers when passing a plate, quiet conversations that lingered late into the night. Liam adored him, often orchestrating small excuses to keep Ethan around longer. One evening, while Liam was asleep, Tamara and Ethan sat on the couch, their knees nearly touching. Rain tapped softly against the windows, the city's distant hum a backdrop to their closeness. "You've changed my week," Tamara admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Not in a dramatic way. Just more bearable." Ethan's gaze lingered on hers, tender, vulnerable. "I could say the same. You've made me want things I thought I'd never need. Things I thought weren't for me anymore." The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Tamara's pulse raced. She noticed the warmth in his eyes, the way he leaned slightly closer, the subtle electricity that passed between them with each shared breath. She wanted to pull away, to remind herself this was fast, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Yet something deeper, a longing she hadn't admitted even to herself, pulled her toward him. "Ethan," she began, voice trembling slightly. He didn't interrupt. He let the moment stretch, letting her voice catch, letting the silence speak. And then, softly, he reached for her hand. Fingers brushing hers, tentative, electrifying. Tamara's chest tightened, every nerve alert. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let her hand rest in his, savoring the warmth, the connection. The air between them was charged, not just with attraction, but with trust, hope, and the quiet promise of something more. But their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Liam, in his innocent honesty, commented one evening, "Mom, he makes you smile like you forget stuff. He's nice." Tamara's heart swelled with both joy and caution. She wanted to believe him, to embrace the feeling swelling inside her. But fear lingered, of loss, of betrayal, of opening herself fully after years of guarded independence. Ethan sensed it too. Later that night, he walked her to the door, his hand lingering near hers, thumb brushing lightly against her knuckles. "I don't want to rush anything," he said quietly, "but I also don't want to pretend this isn't important." Tamara swallowed, nerves and desire colliding. "I know," she whispered. "I just don't know how to do this." He smiled softly, an expression that contained patience, understanding, and a quiet promise. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." Days turned into weeks, their proximity forcing both intimacy and vulnerability. They shared meals, errands, and quiet moments, each learning to navigate the growing feelings that neither could deny. Physical gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a lingering hug, a brush of fingers, became statements of connection, a language all their own. And then came the first true test. Tamara's past, a sudden call from her ex, a misunderstanding at work, threatened to unravel the fragile trust she and Ethan were building. She felt panic rise, doubt creeping in. Ethan noticed immediately, his presence steadying yet non-intrusive. "Tamara," he said softly, "whatever happens, we face it together. You're not alone." The words hit harder than she expected. She realized, with startling clarity, that she was falling. For Ethan, for the family they were quietly forming, for the life she had never dared to imagine. As they sat together in the living room that night, the rain finally slowing outside, Tamara let herself breathe. She didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if life would remain this way, calm and promising, or if chaos would strike again. But for now, she allowed herself to feel warmth, hope, and a connection that went deeper than attraction. Trust, understanding, and the spark of something lasting. And for the first time in a long while, Tamara Wilson allowed herself to imagine a life where love didn't just exist in storybooks, but could happen. By accident, by chance, and by the quiet courage of letting someone in. Would you risk opening your heart to someone who entered your life by chance, knowing it might change everything? Tamara sat by the kitchen window, watching the morning drizzle paint the city in muted grays. Liam was at school, and for the first time in weeks, she had a moment to herself. Yet her mind was not quiet. Ethan's presence lingered like a soft hum in her chest, pulling at memories she had buried, fears she hadn't faced. The accidental call had introduced Ethan into her life, yes. But it had also reminded her of vulnerability, of how easily life could unravel when you weren't prepared. Memories of past heartbreaks surfaced, the father of Liam, who had left her alone with a newborn and a career to juggle, friends who had vanished when things got hard, moments when she had had to be strong simply to survive. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Coffee? I have time this morning. Would love to see you." She hesitated, then typed back, "Okay. 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, she met him at a quiet corner cafe. He greeted her with the same gentle warmth she had come to rely on, yet his eyes carried something heavier today, a glimpse of his own history, the subtle weight behind the charm. They settled into a booth, sipping warm coffee. Tamara glanced at him, curiosity overtaking her caution. "You're different when you're alone. Not the same calm, polished exterior I see at your apartment. There's something behind your eyes." Ethan sighed softly, his gaze distant. "I suppose everyone has a past. Even someone like me." He paused, swirling his coffee. "I've been alone a long time. Not by choice, really. Circumstances. And mistakes." Tamara leaned in slightly. "Mistakes. I built walls," he admitted. "Walls I thought would protect me. From disappointment, from loss, from letting someone in." His hand hovered over the table, close but not touching. "I didn't expect anyone to cross them." Her chest tightened. Vulnerability, she realized, was terrifying, and yet profoundly intimate. "You're letting me in," she said softly. Ethan's lips curved slightly. "I'm trying," he admitted. "But it's hard." They spoke for hours, trading fragments of their pasts. Tamara shared moments of fear, exhaustion, and the weight of raising Liam alone. Ethan shared glimpses of his loneliness, the pressures of a life built around success yet lacking emotional connection. Each revelation was a thread, weaving them closer, forming a bond that went beyond attraction, an understanding that life had shaped them, broken them, and now perhaps could bring them together. But life was never so simple. Later that evening, a text from her ex appeared, curt and demanding, "We need to talk about Liam. Now." Tamara's pulse quickened. She wanted to ignore it, to protect her fragile peace. But Ethan, sensing her tension, offered calm guidance. "Do you want me there?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. Independence had been her shield for so long. Yet there was something in Ethan's presence that made her feel safe. "Yes, I think I do." The meeting was tense. Her ex attempted to assert control, question her decisions, and undermine her confidence. But Ethan remained steady, supporting her without overshadowing her voice. In subtle ways, an encouraging glance, a gentle squeeze of her hand, he reminded her she wasn't alone. Afterward, back in her apartment, the tension slowly melted away. She sank into the couch, exhausted but grateful. "Thank you," she whispered, voice heavy with emotion. Ethan crouched beside her, brushing damp hair from her forehead. "You don't have to thank me. You've earned every bit of support, every ounce of care. I'm here because I want to be." The honesty in his words struck deep. She had been conditioned to fend for herself, to accept no help, to trust no one fully. Yet here was someone who didn't just offer assistance, he offered partnership. And for the first time, Tamara considered the possibility that she could let someone in without fear. Over the next few days, their connection deepened. Ethan became part of their routine, blending seamlessly into the small, chaotic world of Tamara and Liam. He celebrated Liam's small victories, teased him gently, and even learned to navigate the little quirks that made their household unique. One evening, while cooking dinner together, Tamara accidentally cut her finger. Ethan immediately took her hand, inspecting the small wound, his touch both careful and intimate. "You're clumsy," he teased softly, though his concern was genuine. I don't pay attention sometimes," she admitted, eyes meeting his. There was a long silence, charged with electricity. His fingers lingered over hers as he helped bandage it, the contact sending warmth through her chest. "I like that you're real," he said quietly. "I don't want perfection. I want you." The words hung in the air, unspoken but understood. Tamara's breath caught. She realized that for the first time, she wanted to be seen fully. For her strengths, her flaws, her fears, and her hopes. And with Ethan, she could allow that, even just a little. Yet storm clouds loomed. A business complication threatened her work schedule, a sudden illness in her family demanded attention, and whispers from neighbors suggested curiosity, or judgment, about the man who had entered her life so suddenly. One night, after putting Liam to bed, she sat alone on the balcony, city lights twinkling through the rain. Ethan joined her silently, handing her a mug of tea. They didn't speak at first, letting the quiet wrap around them. Finally, she whispered, "I'm scared. Of losing him. Of losing us. Of opening up too much and being hurt." Ethan took her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Fear is part of caring," he said softly. "But we face it together. You don't have to carry it alone." The vulnerability between them deepened. A soft rain began to fall, pattering on the balcony roof. Tamara rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the solid, reassuring warmth of his presence. For the first time in years, she let herself hope, not naively, but with a cautious, fragile optimism that love could be more than a dream. And as the night stretched on, their hands entwined and hearts silently acknowledging the growing bond, Tamara Wilson realized. The accidental call that had brought Ethan into their lives was no longer an accident. It was fate, messy and imperfect, but real. Could opening your heart to someone reveal not just love, but a chance to heal old wounds you thought would never mend? Tamara's world shifted faster than she could catch her breath. A sudden call from her work office left her frozen. A project she had poured months into had been abruptly reassigned, her contributions ignored, and her credibility questioned. Frustration boiled inside her. She had always been resilient, but the relentless pressure combined with her personal vulnerabilities threatened to break her. And then there was Ethan. He had been a constant, a steady presence, until now. He called late that evening, voice tense. Tamara, I need to tell you something. Something important. Her heart clenched. What is it? I wasn't completely honest about my past, he admitted, and she felt a cold twist in her stomach. There's someone I was close to, who's suddenly back in my life. And I need to deal with it. Alone. Tamara's pulse raced. Betrayal. Fear. 1,000 questions collided in her mind. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her voice caught in her throat. Ethan had become her anchor, and now that anchor was slipping away. Before she could respond, the phone went silent. Tamara sank into her couch, hands trembling. Liam, sensing her distress, crept up behind her. Mom, what's wrong? She forced a smile. Nothing, sweetie. Just tired. But the weight of uncertainty pressed down. Trust, hard-earned over weeks, now felt fragile. The next day, Ethan did not come. Calls went unanswered. Messages remained unread. Tamara's anxiety grew, gnawing at her confidence and her hope. Liam noticed her unease and tried to lighten the mood, but the tension was palpable. By evening, she received a text from Ethan, "I need space. Please understand. I'll explain soon." Tamara's chest tightened. She felt abandoned, betrayed, and foolish for allowing herself to believe in something real. Doubts, old fears of being left behind, of not being enough, surfaced violently. Days stretched into a week with no contact. Tamara struggled to focus on work, to care for Liam, to maintain even a semblance of normalcy. She replayed every moment with Ethan, questioning herself, questioning him. Had she misread him? Was it all an illusion? Then came the revelation. A mutual acquaintance inadvertently revealed Ethan had been dealing with a family emergency. An estranged sibling had resurfaced, in critical condition. He hadn't left her, he had been protecting her from the chaos, thinking it would be easier to manage if she wasn't entangled. Tamara's guilt collided with relief, but also frustration. Why hadn't he trusted her with the truth? Why had he disappeared without explanation? She realized that love wasn't just about comfort, it was about confronting fears, communicating, and allowing vulnerability on both sides. That night, after putting Liam to bed, Tamara sat by the window, phone in hand. She typed a message, hesitated, then deleted it. Finally, she pressed send. "Ethan, I want to understand. Please. I can face it with you." Minutes later, his reply came. "Meet me at the park? 10 minutes." Tamara rushed out, rain beginning to drizzle again. Ethan was waiting under a large oak tree, his coat soaked, eyes searching hers. The tension between them was electric. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, voice thick with emotion. "I should have trusted you. I wanted to protect you, but I see now. I only hurt you. I never meant to." Tamara swallowed her emotions, tears threatening. "I was scared, Ethan. I thought you left me. I thought I wasn't enough." He stepped closer, closing the distance. "You are more than enough. You've been nothing but honest, nothing but real. I should have trusted that. I should have trusted us." A sudden gust of wind made them both shiver. Ethan reached out, brushing rain-soaked strands of hair from her face. "I can't promise the world won't challenge us," he said softly, "but I can promise I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere." Tamara's tears finally fell, not of sadness, but of release. The weight of fear, mistrust, and doubt began to lift. She realized that love was never easy, never without hurdles. But it was in these moments of raw honesty and vulnerability that it became real. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight as she rested her head against his chest. Every beat of his heart was a reminder that they had survived the storm, and that their connection, tested, strained, and almost broken, was stronger than fear. They stood in the rain, letting it soak them, letting it wash away the past week's tension. Liam, innocently observing from the porch, smiled, knowing something had shifted. Tamara pulled back slightly, looking into Ethan's eyes. We can face anything together," she whispered. Ethan nodded, lips brushing hers in a tentative but passionate kiss, sealing a promise made without words. It was messy, imperfect, but entirely theirs. And in that embrace, Tamara understood, even at the darkest hour, love could triumph if they chose it, fiercely and without hesitation. The storm around them, the past, misunderstandings, fear, wasn't over. But together, they had found a foothold, a foundation strong enough to weather the next wave. And for the first time in a long while, Tamara allowed herself to believe in a future with him, with Liam, and with the possibility of a love that could endure anything. Have you ever faced a moment when love felt impossible, but choosing it anyway changed everything? The morning sun filtered through the curtains, warm and gentle, painting Tamara's apartment in soft golden hues. Liam sat at the kitchen table, drawing, while Tamara poured cereal into his bowl. The calm was deceptive. The past weeks had left scars, but today felt different. There was hope, and with it, possibility. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan: "Meet me at the pier. I have something to show you. Bring Liam." Curiosity and excitement surged through her. She quickly prepared, packing snacks for Liam and grabbing a light jacket. When they arrived at the pier, the crisp sea breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. Ethan stood near the railing, holding a picnic basket and an easel. "Morning," he greeted warmly, eyes bright with anticipation. "I thought we could have a little adventure." Liam's eyes lit up. "Adventure? Really?" Ethan smiled, setting up the basket and spreading a blanket. "Absolutely. And I have a surprise." He unveiled the easel to reveal a hand-painted portrait of Tamara and Liam, captured in a tender, everyday moment. Laughing together, messy breakfast, sunlight catching Liam's curls. Tamara's breath caught. "You painted this?" "Yes," he admitted, cheeks coloring slightly. "I wanted to capture something real. Something I don't want to forget." Emotion bubbled in her chest, raw and pure. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back, letting the warmth fill her instead. "It's beautiful, Ethan. Really, thank you." He took her hand gently, the gesture intimate but respectful. "Tamara, the past weeks, I've learned a lot. About trust, about patience, about what it means to truly care for someone. I don't want to lose this. Don't want to lose us. Will you let me stay?" Her eyes searched his, reading the sincerity, the vulnerability, the promise of constancy. She realized then that love wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, even when life was messy, even when fear whispered in the night. Yes," she whispered, voice trembling. "I want this. I want you. All of us." He smiled, brushing a wet strand of hair from her forehead. "Then let's do it right. Together." Liam, sensing the significance, clapped his hands. "You guys are stuck together forever now," he declared, laughter bubbling from his lips. Tamara laughed, tears spilling freely now. She leaned into Ethan, arms wrapping around his waist. The embrace was long, tender, and charged with everything words couldn't convey: relief, love, trust, and the thrill of new beginnings. They spent the day on the pier, letting the sun warm their skin and laughter fill the spaces between them. Shared stories, playful splashes of water, quiet moments of reflection, and gentle touches that spoke of unshakable intimacy. Ethan carried Liam on his shoulders, making him roar with laughter, and Tamara captured it all with her camera, documenting a life that finally felt full. As the day faded into twilight, Ethan pulled Tamara aside, eyes locking with hers. "I want to make a promise," he said softly. "I will always show up. I will always listen. I will always protect what we have. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you and Liam are my life now." Tamara's heart swelled. She had spent so long guarding herself, shielding her heart from pain, from disappointment. But standing here, hand in hand with him, she understood. Love could be a safe place, a sanctuary built through trust and honesty. "I believe you," she said, her voice steady, full of conviction. "And I'll do the same. Together." Ethan leaned in slowly, lips meeting hers in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deeper, a culmination of weeks of longing, tension, and undeniable passion. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every brush of their hands whispered promises of a shared future. The sky turned a soft shade of pink, the sun setting over the horizon, reflecting in the water. Liam nestled between them, sleepy but content, the perfect witness to a love that had weathered storms, healed old wounds, and emerged stronger than ever. Later, back at the apartment, they prepared dinner together. Tamara chopped vegetables while Ethan stirred the sauce, Liam narrating every move with innocent enthusiasm. The apartment smelled of roasted herbs and warmth. Laughter filled the air, small touches and lingering glances punctuating the rhythm of everyday life. That night, after Liam was asleep, they sat on the couch, rain softly tapping against the window. Ethan held her close, forehead resting against hers. "I never believed in perfect timing," he said softly. "But maybe it's not about timing. Maybe it's about choosing each other every day." Tamara smiled, brushing her fingers across his cheek. "Then we choose each other every day, no matter what." He kissed her gently, the kind of kiss that promised forever, layered with tenderness and the thrill of vulnerability. The camera of life had captured them in a series of imperfect, beautiful moments. The accidental call, the shared meals, the storms faced together, and finally, the conscious choice to build a family, a partnership, a life together. Tamara Wilson and Ethan Parker, once strangers connected by chance, had become a family forged in trust, love, and resilience. A bond that celebrated differences, embraced imperfections, and promised enduring joy. As the night deepened, they sat entwined, listening to the soft city hum, knowing with absolute certainty that love, chosen and nurtured, had the power to conquer fear, heal wounds, and create a future brighter than either had dared to imagine. And in that quiet, tender moment, Tamara understood. The lonely billionaire and the struggling mother were no longer accidental strangers. They were each other's home. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love, and that the right person can turn an accidental moment into a lifetime of happiness?
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.